Broadcasts of the City of Neenah Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents via the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues or about these broadcasts by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or by completing the electronic feedback form on the city website, www.neenahgov.org. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.
All right. I'd like to call the meeting to order. City of Neenah public hearing on the budget and a special common council meeting tonight, Tuesday, November 14, 2017. The first item of business will be the roll call. The clerk will call your name and ask all the council members to sign in on the roll call machine, please.
Alderman Boyette. Bates.
Here.
Hillstrom.
Here.
Lendrum.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Lang.
Here.
Volno.
Here.
Coons.
Here.
Stevenson.
Here.
There are 8 members present. Alderman Boyette may be a couple minutes late. I know she had texted me earlier. Might be a couple minutes late. The Pledge of Allegiance, we invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the Council President Stevenson.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right. There are no mayor's appointments tonight. We'd like to welcome everyone who's here. Thanks for coming. There are no mayor's appointments. Item number 3 is the approval of council proceedings of the October 17, 2017 joint Neenah-Menasha Council meeting, November 1st, 2017 regular session, Committee of the Whole minutes of November 1st, 2017, and also the Committee of the Whole budget workshops of November 1st, 6th, 7th, 7th, and 8th. Is there a motion on those?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion to approve those sets of minutes. Is there any discussion, corrections, additions, or comment? Seeing none, all in favor of the motions will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 8-0. Item number 4. Tonight we will have a public hearing on the 2018 budget. This will be a public hearing on the proposed 2018 operating budget and the 2018 capital improvements program budget. I would at this time open the public hearing, the public to anyone who wishes to speak to the council on anything with regards to the 2018 budget. We ask that you give your name and address for the record and try to limit your comments to 5 minutes or under. Thanks. Welcome, Ted.
Welcome. Ted Galloway, 744 South Park Avenue. This evening I'd like to compliment Alderman Lindrum for her amendment to take the $21,000 out of the stone walkway at the Lighthouse Point. I am a Park and Rec Commissioner. I'm not speaking for the Park and Rec Commission, but just my personal opinion. I think the path is a waste of money. It's not really needed. We already have concrete paths going up to the lighthouse. We have good ability for people with limited mobility around the lighthouse in the fishing dock. And in a strip of land that is so small, putting another paved feature, I think, is just paving over the park, and the $21,000 certainly could be used in other areas. And I think initially the thought was the Pokemon Go people would follow the path, but if anyone spent any time out there, they weren't saddled to a path, they were saddled to wherever they were wandering as they were looking at their phone. I think that it's a good consideration, and I totally endorse the potential of taking that out of the budget. Thank you.
Anyone else? Welcome, Judy.
Judy Zaretsky, 1129 South Park Avenue, Neenah. You are going to be hearing about a quote from Alderman Lendrum that was taken maybe a little out of context about putting the entire, taking out the $21,000 out of the budget and waiting until the whole entire project is completed. And I would like to ask her if when 2 years from now, when we go for the project, would you be voting for the whole project?
Probably not.
Okay, so that being my concern now is I still think that this $21,000 should be left in the budget because, as you can see, the whole project would not be voted upon in 2 years from now. So that's my comment for tonight.
Thank you for coming. Anyone else like to address the council on any item regarding the 2018 budget? All right. Seeing none, I will then close the public hearing, and we will move on to discussion and consideration of the public hearing and other matters relating to the recommended 2018 operating budget and the capital improvements budget. If I may just take a moment, I think I've done in the past, I've kind of did an overview of the budget, and I just asked the council's indulgence for a few minutes to do that once again, so the people at home that are going to watch this get a little bit better feel for all the different things that were in the budget. As you know, this is a mayor's executive budget, proposed budget, and then we started this way back, I think, with department heads back in July, and the department heads did a very thorough job of preparing documents, preparing documentation, trying to look at ways to find efficiencies in their departments, the needs and wants of their department, and then they brought it to the mayor, who develops the budget along in conjunction with Director of Finance Easker helps me. There were discussions with some council members, the council president a little bit along the way, but for the most part, it is a proposal from the mayor, and then we move on to the workshops. We held 5 workshops that the council took part in. So I think it's safe to say it was about 15 hours of workshops that the council, at least that they took department by department, spent a lot of time, 5 different evenings, going through the budget piece by piece and spending a lot of time. I think they're to be commended for their effort in really understanding the budget and why we do things the way we do in the budget, and asked it a lot of good questions and try and make the document better. And now tonight we're going to take some of those ideas and comments that we had in the workshop, and there may be some motions to change the proposed budget slightly. On most things, I agree with. The only thing I don't agree with is Ted Galloway tonight. Sorry, Ted, my good friend Ted Galloway. But we're going to spend some time talking about this. So I do just want to take a minute or two here and just go over some highlights of the budget in my mind. But it really was a pleasure to present my 4th budget as mayor to the city council. And we have a lot of challenges in this city, but some of the things that we deal with, levy limits and expenditure restraint, zero increases in shared revenue, very minimal aids in general transportation dollars. Those are all challenges that we have, but I think we did a good job in rising to providing a good document here that is going to provide a high quality level of services that this community is used to and will continue to see. This budget, you're going to see a couple major fiscal items in the budget that I know have garnered some discussion in the workshops and are bound to be discussed tonight. But I feel that they're necessary to sustain our core services in this community, things such as garbage collection and recycling, the legal and administrative services, and along with additional hours of service and personnel for our city library. Many times people have heard me talk at Rotary and all the different groups that I speak to on the importance of growing our tax base. Because if we grow our tax base, we grow our city's value, that's how we can further invest in programs and initiatives that will continue to help this community. This year alone, our equalized value, growth in value, as determined by the state of Wisconsin, was approximately 5.20. And that's very good growth for a community. The principles for the budget, they've changed slightly since I became mayor, but really they've pretty much stayed the same. Number one, to fully optimize our excellent staff, reorganize departments and tasks, improve the quality of services, hold the property tax levy below the amount allowed by the state limits, continue to reduce the city's debt load, implement phase 2 of Washington Park's master plan, begin researching and applying for Arrowhead Park grant opportunities. As I said before, continue to invest in economic development opportunities for our citizens and for our community, and to continue to invest the best of our ability in our roads and infrastructure needs, which are in many cases in dire needs of continued improvement throughout the city. Our department heads identified over $25 million of needs in this budget when they presented it to me. I'm recommending a reduction of about almost $500,000 from that number, leaving an final expenditure of about $24.5 million, which is supported by a tax levy. That's what the citizens are going to pay through their property taxes of about $13,424,000. The tax levy increase is $76,000 less than the maximum amount allowed under levy limits. So the tax levy went up about $232,000, or a little bit more than 1.4%. The good news about keeping that under what's allowed by the state is we are allowed to carry forward those dollars to future years in case we need those levy dollars. They'll be available then. So we tried to a goal was to keep the tax rate flat, have a small increase for our taxpayers and their ability to pay those taxes. At the end of the day, and I know these numbers may have changed slightly, and I forgot to check with Mike today, but the owner of a $150,000 home should see a small tax increase of less than $26 for city purposes. And then you got to factor in the schools and the county's taxes, which I believe are expected to go down slightly. But our financial picture continues to improve for this city. Our debt load continues to go down, and we're doing all this under the guidelines set forth by the state of Wisconsin. Our healthcare costs continue to be controlled. I think our human resources and Mike Easker do a great job of looking out for the costs that are involved to keep up with the healthcare costs by our employees. Those are expected to go up about 2% this year. We are going to a new provider this year. This provider will allow our employees to have a better choice, freedom of choice of all three providers in the area, which includes ThedaCare, Affinity, and Aurora. Our own city healthcare clinic continues to see increased utilization and is saving the employees money and helping keep our healthcare costs down. I just wanted to mention we've had a lot of successes this year. We've got the new development going out on Highway by CB and Highway JJ with the housing development. The Gateway Plaza office tower is now open. Over 280 jobs have been created in the downtown district, Plexus jobs. Community development is continuing to work hard at looking for new projects, looking for ways to bring in new businesses to this community. And so in 2018, I've asked for some additional dollars to help replenish TIF 10 costs relative to acquiring properties so that if additional opportunities arise, we have the ability to do that. We're going to lower a reduction from $900,000 to $700,000 of debt service dollars, levy dollars that have been earmarked to assist in refunding debt payments to some TIF districts in which the increment hasn't been sufficient to pay all the debt service requirements. They are going quite well, and I think we're finally in a position where we can start weaning the city taxpayers off those debt levy dollars. Our police and fire services are both fully staffed. They're providing outstanding services to our citizens. Police, fire, EMS, and the police department is looking to expand, to grow, and ask for some new positions. I've asked at this time that those not be filled, but we'll consider them in the future. The fire department, I have put a new fire engine into the budget for next year, along with Menasha, because we have a joint fire department. And I feel strongly that we need to continue providing both departments with training dollars because of the jobs they do. Our library also, like I mentioned earlier, has asked for an increase in dollars so that they can put in additional weekend hours. They had a survey, and the number one thing that our citizens asked for was additional hours for the library. So I was able to put in half of their request in challenging the library board to work within those dollars to provide more hours at a better quality product for the citizens, and they've agreed to do that. Our playground equipment is getting old, so dollars are in here for playgrounds such as Southview Park, Liberty Park, and the Washington Park Master Plan. The Loop the Lake Trestle project is off. If you haven't been over by the Plexus building by the river, Pfeiffer Brothers is already putting in the pilings for the trestle trail. That's expected to be ready in spring of 2018. I think the city, the state, future Neenah, the city of Menasha, State Stewardship Fund, and a lot of generous donors all came together to make that project a reality, and I'm really excited about it. So that's going to be a great addition. In this budget, you'll see several what I consider safety improvements for our residents. I've agreed to fund some speed radar and pedestrian crossing devices on all of our major east-west thoroughfares in this town. So Bell Street, Main Street, and Winneconne Avenue will all get those push-button things to make it easier and safer for pedestrians to cross. I've also asked for one more to be looked at, and that's the one by the YMCA because of the high traffic and the utilization by a lot of walkers, runners, and the elderly from that area who live in that area. So those are some of the things. In addition to the garbage collection and recycling, which we'll be talking more about today, that has been kind of a moving target because our staff, up till this afternoon, is still refining the numbers and working very, very hard and genuine to provide us with the best numbers that they can give us so that we can make a good decision on garbage and refuse collection. The city recycling fee is proposed to go down by $1 from 37 to 36. And road work, Cecil Street, it will be our major project next year in 2018, along with 6 other road projects. I try to eliminate the peaks and valleys in the CIP and the road projects that we do. Our needs are greater than available dollars, and we're doing the best we can to keep up with that. I also, we're not going to do anything in this budget, but down the road, I've asked respectfully of the council to consider proposals and to consider looking at revisiting alternative ways to fund the roads that the citizens of this city have to do through the assessment process. So I think hopefully very shortly after this, there's more discussion is going to take place with regards to how we fund our roads and how the citizens pay for them. So just a couple other things. I really believe that investing in our staff, just like your companies that you work for invest in you as employees, investing in our staff is critical to keeping good employees and bringing good employees on. And so similar to last year, I provided for a 1% increase in January and a 1% increase in July, effectively a 2% increase, but spread it out twice over a year, along with some mid-year adjustments for midpoint, merit pay, and exemplary performance. We're also going to put in $10,000. I've requested $10,000 for a salary plan review in 2018 that I hope will lay the groundwork for the city's future needs with regards to salaries. So, and then lastly, one other major initiative that's in this budget is my request for a reorganization of personnel in the legal and administrative office services department. This request follows a recommendation from Carlson Detman for a succession and efficiency departmental study, the first of many, I hope, where we go through department by department and see if there's a better way to do it. So we'll see what comes of that tonight. So all these changes are going to be on the table tonight. And while these ideas are a collection of my budget priorities as our elected leader, I really respect and thank the City Council for the time and effort that they put in on this budget and the thoughtful discussion and questions and visits with me in my office to try and make this document better. Mike Easker and his staff, this is the first year budget without Nancy Handovit, and I think Andy did an exemplary job working with staff, and I had many comments from staff saying what a great job for the first year that Andy did in that department. So I want to thank you and congratulate Mike and his staff on a job well done. So with that, I want to thank the council and look forward to a healthy discussion on how we together can make this community even better tomorrow than what it is today. So thank you very much. If I wasn't hoarse before, I'll hoarse now. Sorry. But I'm cold coming on just before deer hunting. All right. So with that being said, Mike, do you have any ground rules, or Todd? I'd like to first maybe go to Mike and then go to Todd.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. And again, nothing more than probably following some protocols that we've done in previous years, where I kind of have a list of things that I track based upon actions taken, and just to kind of update council as to where we're at with some of these, I guess, important numbers. Total tax levy, we're going to track that. We're starting that at $18,653,000 plus. The assessed tax rate of $9.4947 cents. That's where we're starting. The unused tax levy or levy limit, as the mayor indicated, is $76,118. Starting the night with a proposed GO capital borrowing of $8,259,180. We are starting the night with 2018 borrowing less than what will be maturing in 2018 by $103,130. Starting the night using $150,000 of general fund reserves. We are starting the night being under the expenditure restraint limit of $180,910. That will not be an issue this year. And those are the numbers I'm tracking moving forward.
Thank you. And then, like I said earlier, we're fortunate we have a very dedicated and committed city council president who's been through many budgets. And Todd, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, you and Mike have described that process pretty clearly. There's been some conversation tonight regarding our protocol for expeding some of the less controversial issues. I don't know if we'll be able to accomplish that because I can't anticipate each council member's passion on each issue. So I would suggest that we deal with the issues in a manner that's a motion by motion. So this time, if it's appropriate, Mayor, I will move to adopt Resolution 2017-29, adopting the proposed Mayor 2018 operating budget and 2018 capital improvement program as submitted. You want me to move that on?
Second.
There's a motion by Alderman Stevenson, seconded by Alderman Paulno, to adopt resolution number 2017-29. Is there any discussion? Alderman Bates.
I'll start things off on the positive note. From what I had discussed with Mike Easker, I was hoping to get kind of a package of what we see as reductions together, and then hitting up the additions that we're going to put on. So kind of looking at it as a kitty kind of thing is not to look at each individual, but maybe in some senses getting some of the money together that we know that we're going to give back. I'm going to start it on a small frame, and I apologize that this was not in the emails from Mike. On page 248, there are carry forwards that I know were not used for the Forest Manor pedestrian routes. It's actually the Forest Manor lighting. It's kind of a misnomer. So my amendment would be to add back $7,500, and which would allow Public Works to reduce their borrowing by $7,500. The actual project was quoted at $65,000. It came in at $57,080.22. And
Mike, could you help?
Alderman Bate, is that listed on the list of carry forwards on page 248? Which one are we talking about?
It's Marathon Parkwood 2015. It's called pedestrian routes. It's actually the only thing we got on there was lighting. So it's $65,000.
Okay, we're still showing $65,000 being carried forward. That money, majority of that money has been spent. Is that what we're saying?
There's $79.20 left, and I thought I'd just add back
$79.20. Okay.
But there's $7,500. I think we can add back in.
$7,500. That's what you're looking to. Okay.
Your motion is to add that, take that carry forward $7,500.
So the borrowing for Public Works could be
Right, and the offset then there would be an elimination of $7,500 that's being borrowed, currently being proposed to be borrowed for streets and pedestrian roads.
Okay. Alderman Bates has made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Motion by Alderman Bates, seconded by
Second.
Alderman Erickson. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Paulno.
No, I didn't want to discuss that one.
Okay. Alderman Stevenson?
I just want to make sure we're clear that the amount that Jerry says we've spent is truly spent and not simply encumbered and still owed with dollars that are be carried forward.
We had to pay We Energies up front for the work.
Okay.
So that's the amount she cited.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Coons.
Thank you, Mayor. My only issue here is that we have a lot of carry forwards. This is typically a process we take care of when we in the spring when we do our capital, trying to figure out what we really spent, what we didn't spend. I imagine we could find several different items like this throughout the budget and try to figure out where we're at. And if we nail this one down, I guess I have no issue going with that, but I just hope we don't have a string of these, because to me, we'll do that at borrowing, and then if anything else, this helps us keep our borrowing constrained, and then hopefully in the fall we can find all these extra dollars and even borrow even less. But if we try to maximize that right now, we lose that vehicle.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, there's a motion by Alderman Bates, seconded by Alderman Erickson. All in favor of that motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no, using the roll call. That motion passes 9-0. The record shows Alderman Boyette is present. Okay. 9-0. Alderman Paulno?
All right, I'll take this slow. I have a potential motion that's a combination of things. Per the list, we have a motion would be to add back in the police station replacement of the roof and the repair foundation. That would total of $142,250. And at the same time, repurpose some of the potential decrease in borrowing. There's 4 of those. Repurpose those to cover that expenditure of the roof and the foundation. Those 4 would be the Park and Rec, $15,000 that Director Kading said he didn't need in 2018. The police K9, $70,900 that's not needed because of donated items, dollars. ISERP dollars, $40,000 because we have plenty of money in that account. And the IS Smart Cities Initiative, that's $20,000. That would total $145,900. So repurpose those dollars to pay for the roof and the foundation, and any overage would be a contingency. That would be my motion. Explained further upon a second.
Second.
I guess
there's a motion by Alderman Paulno, seconded by Alderman Coons.
My intention in my motion is to kind of encapsulate, I think, the feeling of the council is to get the police station, the roof, and the foundation squared away. This is a roof that has a design life of 15, 16 years, and we're at year 26. Had some leakage there, and I think it just makes sense to do that in conjunction with the foundation and incorporate, also utilize items that had been on the list for decreased borrowing. So it's really capital borrowing neutral. It's actually a little ahead. So I just think it makes sense when you have a leaking roof to replace the roof. Thank you.
Alderman Stevenson.
Okay, so like I warned earlier, we are, from my perspective, the motion makes sense except for two things. I'm not convinced about the foundation, and I'm okay with removing the $15,000 as long as we expend $60,000 on the new mower that is mentioned on page 289. So I can start attempting to bring these together and say, I don't want to do the foundation, but I'm good with the rest of it as long as we spend the $60,000 on the replacing the 2010 mower. So here we go. How do I proceed based on this motion? I can vote no on it, and if it passes, then no.
Procedurally, Alderman, it would be possible for you to move to amend the amendment.
I know I could. Thank you. I know I could. But then else might have an issue with the foundation and not want the mower, and then they want to bring something else in because it was connected. And quite honestly, I'm not crazy about the Smart Cities Initiative, $20,000 being removed. So maybe I want to support that.
Yeah. Alderman Palmer, are you in the queue? Right?
Yep.
Okay. I just didn't know if you were.
Just
Go ahead.
in regard to the mower, I would be fully supportive of that. There's other funding sources. This is one way I thought it would be capital borrowing neutral. Free to, President Stevenson, you're free to offer amendments to this. This is just one attempt to accomplish, I think, a lot of items at the same time. I can definitely respect the opinion.
Alderman Boyette.
Thank you. I'm actually in favor of both. If we can find funding sources for them, I'm all for it. I don't want to borrow, but we have a lot of carryover, so if we want to utilize some of those, I would be in favor of both.
Alderman Coons?
I am prepared to vote against this, even though I seconded it. I think the idea was to speed this up, but I think it's just going to slow us down. If we try to figure out a way to noodle through this thing, we can just go and take these one by one. Jim, I assume if we vote against this, we can still take individual items and address those as individual amendments.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I have the amendment down. I kind of marked which ones, but I'm kind of like, I think a little bit of what Alderman Stevenson is saying. I will just say this, and I don't think it's a bad idea. I will say this, so it's something to think about. In 2021, the police department has a capital improvement project for that police station. They are asking to to add on to their facility. Now, 2021 is a ways out, but they're asking in their long-range planning to add to probably double the size of their current facility, add an indoor range, training facility addition, and things like that. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but at the time I said I'd like to wait on the roof is because of that. I mean, they have a request in for a major expansion of their police department, and I wonder if it'll be able to be rolled in what we do now, or if we're going to spend $122,000 when we could do it a lot cheaper a couple years from now, and maybe we could get by with the roof or do some temporary repairs to get by. The foundation, I'm kind of the other way. I've seen the pictures and that, and it appears something needs to be done. So there's a lot of parts in this motion. Lastly, I will say this. One thing I noticed when I came to this community as the mayor is, it's my belief, and I think even a lot of aldermen believe, that we were a little bit behind the eight ball in innovation, in technology, and we've really stepped it up with technology in the last few years. Technology, social media, security of the building, IT department. The next new thing is smart cities and how you can do things better, what tools you can use. Smart cities initiatives are really taking hold all over the country. And so I think Neenah needs to be, instead of being a follower on some of these things, we need to be out front. The request was for a lot more than this. I cut that request down, and I think in my comment said something like, I think we should dip our toe in the water, so to speak, and see what's out there. What types of things can make this community run more efficiently? What types of smart city initiatives can we learn on how to do things? Simple things like we have a lot of money running these pumps, lift stations and that. Is there a better way to do that? And this Smart Cities initiatives are collaborating and finding better ways to do this. So I don't want to get too deep in it, but I think, Alderman Paulno has a motion here that parts of it I would support, parts of it I don't for some reasons, but those are just a few collection of my thoughts. Alderman Paulno.
I just want to state the police department, in regard to the roof and the foundation, the police department had that as a request in the 2018 budget. That was their request. There was no request for the capital project in the 2018 budget. So they believed, because they brought forth that request for the roof and for the foundation, they said it at the budget meeting. Hence why I support it. But I agree that, we can look at in the first, I personally have heard of a new building, really that was more related to this was at our budget workshops. So we haven't presented that. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that in the future, but we've had failures of this roof. We've spent dollars because the roof has had leaks. It's a 15-year life design, 26-year roof. Also, in regard to the smart cities, I'm not saying we don't do that. I'm a strong advocate for technology, but we have a lot of projects, GIS, that hasn't been come to fruition. We've worked on years. We have ERP. We have $275,000 of borrowed dollars that haven't been spent in the last 2 years because we haven't had a focus. I've advocated for a subcommittee to give that focus, give it a platform, which I think is sorely needed. Because technology is great, but just throwing at dollars and quantifying it as we're behind the times, I don't think is a wise path for the city of Neenah. But I do think we need to get up to date in technology. I think it is here, and we do need to get on there. But I don't think just putting dollars at it, when you have a lot of borrowed dollars already, is the wise course. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So, Bill, to restate your, we have this motion. Okay, Bill, as I understand it, you move to do the second item on Mike's list: replace the roof of the police station for $122,000, repair the foundation at the police station for $20,250, to the police canine equipment, use private donations for $70,900. The IS equipment, remove the ERP suite for $40,000, and the IS equipment, remove the Smart Cities initiative of $20,000.
And the more.
And the more.
And the cemetery mower. That's the one I missed for $15,000. Is that correct, Bill?
That's correct. Additions would be $142,250, and the repurposed capital dollars would be $145,900.
All right. Thank you very much. Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a question for you, Mary. Have you discussed at length with the chief about the expansion, if that is the appropriate year, or even moving it up? Or is that not something you have discussed yet?
No, we've discussed it. Chief Captain Olson, there are some not engineered plans, but there's more than a drawing on a napkin. So I think they are putting a lot of thought into this. But I did ask them to put it out a little bit. They came up with 2020. In 2021, is that correct, Mike? I think that was at their request.
So the roof will still be a part of that plan. It's not like they're going to take the new roof off for the expansion, right?
Yes.
I just don't want this to be a total waste of money in 2021.
No, I would imagine they'll have to tie in or something. So, no, I don't. In reality, I think it can be done. I think you just, and Bill's right too. I mean, that whole project may or may not happen. It hasn't been vetted yet. So, you can't keep putting things off because you have something down the road. But clearly, there's going to be a point where we're going to start talking about this to see if it's something that the council wants to further explore before 2021. Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. As someone who's just replaced a roof, 4 years down the line could be a long time for something if they've already had problems with it. I know we asked the chief whether or not it was something that could be segregated, like was there a division in the building or whatever. And from what I understand, it's kind of one contiguous space. So I see that as being something important. I linked the idea of fixing the foundation, hoping that if it's one of these things that the roof is perhaps causing an extra problem with the foundation, you kind of want to handle that. What I did find out is his corner is the worst corner, that it did a big split in September, I think he said, after a major rain. But he did notice that the other corners could need some help in the future as well. So we have to go in with our eyes open that there might be more going on. From what I understand, if they were to put an addition on, from what I would imagine, it would not affect what work is being done now. So personally, I see it as being something important to get handled immediately. And I can see voting for the way Alderman Pollnow put it together. I could also see pulling it apart and going at them one by one. So I could see it either way.
All right, thank you very much. So there's a motion and a second. Everyone understand the motion? All in favor of Alderman Pollnow's motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 6-3. Excuse me. Is there another motion? Alderman Stevenson?
Oh, I better get my lawnmower in here quick. I'm going to make a motion to add $60,000 to the Park and Recreation budget to fund a replacement of a 2010 John Deere mower LM4.
Alderman Stevenson moves, seconded by Alderman Boyette, to add $60,000 to the borrowing to replace a 2010 lawnmower in the Park and Rec cemetery, I believe.
Well, we're adding it to the Park and Recreation budget because we just removed one from the cemetery budget.
Okay. Yep, you're right. That motion is seconded by Alderman Pollnow. I'm sorry, Alderman Boyette. There's a motion and a second. Alderman Stevenson, you have anything else or not? Okay. Alderman Pollnow?
Yeah, I'm fully supportive of this motion. The Park and Rec department provided us with some real detailed information, pictures for this mower, and it's long in the tooth, and I think it needs to be replaced.
All right. And let me just say that, you know, as I'm putting this document together, I'm trying to make it work, so I didn't have heartburn over this either way. That'll vouch for me. I always look, and Renee's lawnmower is older than 7 years old, so.
That's all you know about the lawnmower.
So, it was just trying to get the numbers to work. This is really where we were at, and I thought if we could squeeze another year out of that lawnmower, it would be fine. But they have provided some documentation that, you know, it's in a little bit need of things to be fixed constantly. So, Alderman Boyette.
Thank you. Yes, my idea is also in favor of this because I look at it as a safety issue. The current mower is in really bad shape, and when the front deck has issues of slipping, it's just a matter of time before this is an accident for either the person using it or a bystander who happens to be nearby when it does let go. So it's a safety thing for me. I just wish that we could find a different way to fund it. Do we have any carryovers that we can use for this? Because I'm not a fan of borrowing. Anybody?
You can ask that question or make the motion. Alderman Pollnow?
Just to weigh in on the carry forwards, has always been I plan to discuss this later with Director Easker, maybe in February, to talk specifics about carry forwards, maybe to do it off budget time. I don't have, there's a lot, to answer your question, there's a lot. You could choose a lot of different ones, and it, hard to, for any alderman, I think, pull one out.
Director Easker?
Yes. With regard to the carry forwards, again, it's a bit of a tough issue because of the time of year that we're in. The carry forwards that you see, and this was kind of exemplified by Alderman Bates having to ask Director Kaiser how much money was actually left of the carry forwards that were listed. Those carry forwards are simply listed there for informational purposes to tell you what was carried forward 7 months ago. Things have changed a lot in 7 months. So those numbers are not even accurate numbers. They're just simply reflecting what was carried forward in the CIP. So that's why it's a difficult time to think about using those funds, because you really don't know until we get to the end of the year and probably into February before we actually know how much money is still left from those carry forwards and how much money is left over from 2017 projects that were budgeted and borrowed for, but maybe are not complete, maybe we're done and we've got money left over. That's why those, I think, touching on Alderman Paulno's point, it's a little bit of a difficult time of year to actually be zeroing in on accurate numbers there, just to point that out.
Alderman Coons?
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions for Director Easker. The first one is, if this amendment were to pass, where would our borrowing be? I have us roughly at 100. You said 103. We had 103 gap, and I'm thinking it's around 50K now.
54.
54. Okay. And then the next question is, when at borrowing time, when we look at this, what are the chances that any of these numbers will be the same, as far as what we think we're going to borrow, based on, because we'll look at carry forwards, look at all these other kind of things.
Sure.
I assume these numbers will all be changed slightly.
Well, that will all depend upon when we borrow. If you recall, the past couple of years, we've borrowed early in the year based upon these numbers, and hoping that there were not large changes coming forward in the CIP. That's kind of a year-by-year decision that the city has to make. Should we try to capture the interest rates that are there in January? Do we wait till April or May? We can talk about that. I think it could go either way.
Thank you.
All right. There's a motion and a second to replace the 2010 more by Alderman Stevenson. All in favor of that motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Using the roll call machine, please. That motion passes 9-0. Any other motions? Alderman Paulno?
There's one that wasn't on the list. I remember was requested by Director Kading. And that was, correct me if he's still not wishing this, that was to add $5,700 to the 2018 Park Revenue and Facility Rental account. He'd requested that at the...
That's because it's operating.
At the workshop.
It's operating, not capital. Not on that list,
okay.
But it is on the big list.
Is on the list that was generated by Mike as possible changes from workshops, but the list here is
okay.
Only borrowed.
Okay, all right.
Anything on this list that's operationally tax levy driven won't be in his summary.
Okay, that's right. Okay, that'll be my motion then. Add that back in.
Any other motions for the Alderman Paulno?
That was the 55,700.
That is the motion.
5,700.
Okay. That motion is seconded by Alderman Stevenson. On the motion, Alderman Paulno.
No, I'm sorry.
Alderman Stevenson?
Just as a minor detail, but it is detail. Of the 5,700, the Memorial Park revenue budget would be up 500. The Whiting Boathouse would be up 4,500 presented budget. The Shattuck Boathouse 200, and the Memorial Large Room 500. That's. Oh yeah, the boat. Yes, correct. So
these are revenue numbers that have been adjusted by the director.
Recommended to be adjusted by
Recommended to be-
the department head.
Right.
That was done at the workshop.
Director Easker?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Anytime we do these, it's incumbent, I guess, that we also decide how to use the money. We have a couple of options. Typically, you can either use it to increase spending and keep the levy the same. We can use it to reduce the tax levy, or use it to reduce the amount of general fund reserves that we're using to balance the budget. Those would be three options to decide how the money would be.
Alno?
I would say to reduce the levy then.
As would I.
Anyone else? Alderman Coons?
I guess I'm just confused. We're talking about adding dollars and you're talking about lowering the levy?
Increase.
Adding revenue.
Increase.
Okay.
Increasing
Oh,
revenue.
revenue. Thank you. I knew there was an explanation somewhere.
And can I ask a question? So if you specifically say it's to reduce the levy, a later budget motion could increase the levy, correct? So then it would have the effect of not, well, it'd still have the effect of, okay. All right. Alderman Coons, are you finished? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to discuss? There's a motion and a second to increase the revenue $5,700 in the park and recreation rentals. All in favor of that motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 9-0. Okay. Alderman Bates.
As long as we're looking at operations, page 323. As we had discussed at our workshop, we understand that the IT department had requested an extra person to help out with some of these backlogs that they have. The details on page 327, but I'm working with, it's pretty much the same here on 323. On the outside services on page 327, you can see we are down to 0 on line 0235 in the Geographic Information System, GIS. I would like to add $10,500 for an outsourced GIS services to replace or to give us some time that the employee would have done. And that would affect, on page 323, the excess revenues over or under expenditures would go from $10,800 to $370. So the revenue from that department would go down to $370. Mike, is there any other impact that would do?
No.
Okay. So that would be my motion.
Mike, you want to just rephrase what?
Absolutely.
We see them.
She needs a second. Point of order.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, we're restating the motion. So
Her motion. He has to state it, and somebody else has to second it, correct? Because it's not a motion until it's seconded.
He's asking for clarification.
I'm asking clarification from the director on the motion. That's all.
What Alderman Bates is, I believe what her motion is, would be to increase an expenditure line item in the IS operating budget by $10,500. Absent any other action as part of that, by definition, the effect will be to reduce the amount of surplus for 2018 that would be generated by the IS department by that $10,500. The budget contemplated that before this amendment there would be $10,870 of surplus generated through the IS budget. If we increase expenditures by 10.5, the surplus is now
370.
This is all summed up on page 320. Three
All right.
of the interim.
All right. I just wanted to get clarification. Alderman Bates, is that how you understand
Yes.
the motion? Okay. That's all I wanted was clarification.
And I would second that if I could.
Is there a second
I
to
second it.
Alderman Bates's motion?
Yes.
There's a second by Alderman Coons. There's a motion by Alderman Bates, a second by Alderman Coons.
Oh,
There we go. And that would add 10,500 to the IS operations GIS outside services software. Any discussion on that motion?
yep.
Alderman Paul? Oh, go ahead.
As we had a lot of good discussion on GIS, I'm a fan of moving forward with this, but I don't have an understanding. And I know Director Wellering tried to explain it at length where we are and where we've been, but I don't know and I don't understand. And every year at budget time, we talk about where we are and where we should be and how come we're all confused. At least me personally confused about why we're not where we need to be. So I am remiss from adding more money when I don't know what the plan is or if there is really a plan. We spent $11,000 on a study that we haven't really evaluated at committee. That was over a year ago. So I just think I won't be supporting this for that, not for the dollar amount itself, but the fact that we haven't given this, I think, the attention we need as a council. So I won't be supporting this on that.
Alderman Bates?
Thank you, Mayor. As I understand it, GIS is one of our snags that we have right now. We all recognize it. And it's something kind of basic to several departments that they need to access it. And from what I understand is this would be specifically for GIS, so that would move that along. And if Director would like to give us an example of how this would be used, I would appreciate that.
Director Wenninger?
Yeah, basically these funds would be outsourced some of the backlog on maintenance that we have right now. As I tried to explain, and the study bill referred to is the recommendation would be to take our one-person GIS shop and separate the duties so that that person does infrastructure updates, license management, development of applications, internal and external, and then have the maintenance backlog. Our plan would be to catch up this way and then move the maintenance over to the user departments and get it off of his plate so that we can advance GIS.
Any other questions of Director Wenninger? Alderman Boyette?
So the way I understand this is a part-time position, and you feel that a part-time position or part-time hours would get you caught up?
This is not a part-time position. I had requested a full-time position starting July 1st. After we discussed it with, we've got an internal steering committee made up of myself, Jerry Kaiser, Chris Hayes, Rick Meverden, and Kent Taylor. We decided that it'd be more prudent for year one to go ahead and start walking into this versus bringing on a position part-time or full-time that we're not sure we're going to need to sustain, because the hope is once we go ahead and get caught up on the back maintenance that we can offload that to user departments, much like with the water utility. I had a discussion with Kent. They went out and they did the outsourcing to bring everything up to snuff, and then his staff will be doing the maintenance moving forward.
So will this amount of money give you what you need to get caught up?
It won't give us what we need to get caught up, but I don't think we can get caught up in 1 year. This would get us caught up.
So you're going to need this amount next year too then?
Possibly.
Thank you.
Alderman Paulo?
I'm a big advocate for GIS, and I think we should do it. Yeah, and I don't want to seem like we shouldn't do it. Question for you, Director, is why, when the study that was paid, we paid, I think, $11,500 for that study, it was evaluated by staff, why hasn't that study been brought to a committee for discussion and a plan of action so the council knows we're going to spend X, Y, Z over the next so many years?
Basically, I don't have an answer for that. We went ahead and we worked it internally with our GIS steering committee that was advised, put together by a consultant. If you would like, we can bring that back to council. I also emailed the mayor and Alderman Stevenson following our discussion the other day, saying that it's probably prudent that the second meeting in January we have a 30 to 45-minute presentation of GIS to the council, so you're aware where we're at and where we want to go.
But to be clear, it wouldn't be bringing back to councils, because I've been on council 6 years and GIS has never been an action item on any committee or a council that I can remember. So, which is good. I mean, I think the game plan is good, but I think a historical background would be excellent as well. I think we need to get focused on this. That's why it seems like piecemeal. This is a piecemeal motion, in my opinion, without having all the facts. That's why I find it troubling. Not that I'm against GIS. I think it's an excellent tool, and we're way behind the 8 ball. But that's why I think we need to focus on one thing at a time, GIS, ERP, which we haven't even dug into. So that would be my recommendation.
Alderman Coons?
Thank you, Mayor. I understand Alderperson Palno's frustration. I think there's probably a lot of frustration when it comes to GIS for a lot of good and bad reasons. But I think it'd only be fair. I would expect to see some things come out of the GIS. I expect to get some kind of information, see some headway that we can measure. But to expect that, I think it's only fair to give you some additional tools to get that done. So I'm happy to support this. I think it is a bit piecemeal, and I think that's not a bad thing. I think what you've done here is, instead of just getting a full-time person here, let's slow this down a little bit. Let's think a bit about this. And let's try out this, and let's see where we go. So I think the approach is fine. I hope we can achieve some things. And so for that reason, I'd support this in hopes that we can measure this and see where we're going forward.
Thank you. Yeah, and just to Director Wenninger just last week emailed Alderman Stevenson and I and asked for and suggested maybe to have that discussion right away, late December, early January, as far as where we are, and give us a more in-depth discussion of where we're going. So, and in fairness, I will say we do have the committee of internal staff, that these are the people that they're the users of this system, and they're the ones who use it day in, day out, so they collaborate and talk. The water department has done an excellent job in, I think, Alderman Palmer, you've recognized that, I have, a lot of people, of moving forward on GIS, but they put a lot of money into it. A lot of money went into it, a lot of time, a lot of effort. Our IS department is kind of a one-man show when it comes to GIS. So it's putting fires out, doing problems, fixing things that come up during the day, which take away from the ability to really move forward on GIS. I mentioned earlier technology we're lagging on, and clearly GIS technology is something that we're lagging on. And so I think this is the first kind of step of, moving an initiative forward at a very low cost to try and get us, an intern, a low-cost person to get the data entry in there so that we can begin looking forward thinking with how can we better utilize GIS in this city. So, Alderman Stevenson?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, to be fair to Director Wenninger, he did send an email to both the mayor and I, and it addressed Alderman Palno many of the issues that you identify as the council has heard and reviewed GIS over the years. So he sent that last week, and I have not responded yet because of the budget. But so that structure has been offered, and I'll respond accordingly. Relative to the motion on the floor, I was not supportive of, and I wasn't supportive of adding full-time people to this position, basically for the reasons that Alderman Palmer has identified. is that we have had the GIS tool for a long time now, and we've struggled to get it implemented. And so I think the responsibility of the council, as it is with all governing bodies, whether it's private sector or public sector, is to do and follow up on investments to determine the payback, if the payback is occurring, and if the investment is being utilized in a manner which is consistent with expectation. And in the case of GIS, I think we need to at least have a feel of comfort that the investment that was made 25 years ago, because it hasn't been implemented to the same level as other communities, what do we need to do to get that? And the last thing I'd want to do is just simply throw money at it, because we have one person that does it now, and we have departments that are requesting additional application development. The water department felt so passionate about it that they hired their own GIS consultant to get their desires onto into the GIS program. So I'm supportive of spending $10,000 to hopefully evaluate our structure, because of what I liked from Joe was the fact that we were doing some application development. We also have to come up with a methodology to maintain, and my assumption is, I'm not an expert, but my assumption is that individual departments have to assume some of that responsibility. So simply throwing money at it and adding a person without defining roles and responsibilities would be imprudent. So supportive of this expenditure, and I will share with the council my response regarding a presentation to the council this week or early next.
Thank you, Alderman Stevenson. Alderman Paulno.
Really quick, that's encouraging that the information's being going to be forwarded to us. I'm encouraged that we're going to have some more focus on this because I'm excited for GIS. I just, when you come to us for information, because we keep saying that not a lot of money has been spent on this, I have no idea how much money has been spent on GIS. I see it in the budget every year. So it'd be interesting to know year to date what we've spent since the inception and/or start of this. As I said, again, 6 years on the council, it's never been on an agenda item, never been in council to my knowledge, and if everybody can correct me, I'd be happily see that information. But we've never seen it 6 years since I've been on the council in front of us.
Director Wenninger, you have a comment?
Yeah, I do want to make a comment. And, since we had that study, it's not like nothing's been done. We've went ahead, we integrated it with Evolve, the new permitting software. We've integrated it with Market Drive. We've got a couple internal intranet tools. There's no public-facing applications right now, but there's been a lot of work and cleanup internally for our staff and city staff to utilize.
Thank you very much. Look forward to the presentation. Thank you. So there's a motion by Alderman Bates, seconded by Alderman Coons. Being no other discussion, all in favor of that motion, vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 8-1. Other amendments. Alderman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. There's one I'd like to make this evening for capital equipment, police for drone night vision camera. And this is a $4,000 item that was cut from the budget. And it's, as we found out in budget discussions, it's not only to be used for the police department, but it's also a valuable tool for the fire department for industrial fires, finding where people are in a building, finding where the hot spots are. So I propose, make a motion to put this back in the budget with that $4,000 coming from the preparedness CDC funds on page 226 in our budget manual. There is, right now there's $92,459 in there. $10,000 will be spent. So there'll still be $78,459 after, if this passes this evening. So I'd like to make that motion.
There's a motion by Alderman Hillstrom. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Boyette. I do have one question, or one maybe a helpful hit. I thought I heard back then, and when I talked to Chief, we're not allowed to use it at night at this point. So we don't have the certification to use this at night. Is that correct? Currently. So all I was going to ask is if that's the case, where we don't have the certification to FAA won't allow us to use it at night, could we make this contingent upon us being certified? That's all. Is that the case, Chief?
That is correct. It is an exemption that we apply for, and I think the paperwork is in on that now, requesting that exemption. I'm not sure how long it would take, but as of today, we can't use it.
Sure. So all I would ask is a suggestion, is that we don't buy it if we can't use it. So let's make sure we get the exemption.
Okay, I have no problem.
That's a friendly suggestion. Is that okay, Alderman?
Yes.
Lindstrom? Also with the second? Okay. Is there any discussion? Alderman Coons?
Thank you, Mayor. My thought is to vote against this. If we get the approval, we can always add this. This isn't we're not prevented ourselves from ever, it's a $4,000 piece. If a time comes, we need it, and we have the approval to actually use it, let's bring it up and we'll check it out then.
Any other comments? Alderman Hillstrom moved to add $4,000 to the police CIP for a police equipment drone night vision camera, seconded by Alderman Boyette. All in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 7-2, and that does have that contingency that I suggested. It was also in the motion. Thank you. Alderman Pono.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion in TIF 8 to change the funding source for the $10,000 in planning and marketing from borrowed dollars to carry forward funds for downtown parking. I think the fundage there is in excess of $800,000. Some very small items, more philosophical than anything. Just think we should utilize those funds before we borrow more money if it's being donated to. That would be my motion.
Second.
You have a page, Alderman Pono or Mike?
62 to 63.
Alderman Pono moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Erickson seconds. On the motion, Alderman Pono? Anything more?
Just to, like I said, it's a small item. I just think I do it every year. I think, TIF 8 is already a recipient of donated dollars from TIF 7. So I just think it's prudent to use $4.
Any questions? Director Faze, does this have any impact on anything?
Not significant.
Alderman Bates.
Thank you. If you could restate that. I was turning pages as you were talking. Sorry.
Alderman Palmer, can you restate your motion? And
my motion would be to change the funding source, $10,000 funding source for TIF 8.
Oh.
From planning marketing support from borrowed to carry forward funds.
Got it.
For done.
All right. Anyone else? Any comments or questions? Alderman Stevenson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I mean, we could do this on every TIF. It doesn't philosophically it limits our ability to utilize the purpose for the dollars, which in this case are downtown parking. We have an opportunity to meet a what we hope is an expected need for additional parking. We have $10,000 less to do that. If we would continue to do that, and what person, although I agree he's consistent with his passion, he brings it up every year. But we have to make sure we have the dollars available, and those dollars are there because of the rationale that they were used to borrow, and that is to facilitate downtown parking. So because of that, I will once again vote no on it.
Thank you, Alderman Stevenson. I don't have this isn't a huge deal. I think it's a little bit of principle, maybe by an alderman, and that's okay. I just want to relay to the council today, Director Hayes and I, we've been meeting recently with some of our business leaders, and we're going to continue that. Today we met with one of our large downtown businesses, employers, and they would like to continue to grow. They feel they cannot grow in Neenah because of parking. They would like to add more employees. This is a large employer. Parking is available, but their employees have to walk a ways. And so they believe that this is limiting their ability to grow. And, they weren't, they were just informing us that if there was more parking in downtown, there may be more of the ability to hire more people to work downtown. They have the space, the capacity, but parking is becoming a little bit of a problem. The thing tonight, the comprehensive plan that Brad Schmidt had out there showed 16,000 out-of-town people come into the city of Neenah every day to work. According to their numbers, 11,000 people from the city of Neenah go outside of the city of Neenah to work. So we are an importer of jobs, and we'd like to continue that. So as Alderman Stevenson kind of alluded to, we need to ensure that we're able to meet the parking needs. We don't know what that's going to be in the future, but we just need to be ready. So, Director Hayes, you have anything to add?
No, I was really holding my comments for an anticipated future action coming.
Okay. So it was just coincidence we had this meeting today. So, but it was a good discussion, good meeting. So there's a motion by Alderman Paulno, seconded by Alderman Erickson. All in favor of that motion signify by will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion fails. 6 noes, 3 ayes. Is there any other motions? Alderman Lundrum?
Thank you, Mayor. Page 282, Park and Rec, number 5, Kimberly Point Park, create a 8 to 10 foot walking stone path along the shoreline, $21,000. I would like to remove that for several reasons. One, I actually, in theory, do agree with previous Alderman Zaretsky in that it should be done all at the same time. I'm only one vote, Judy. Nobody ever listens to me anyway, so don't worry about that. But I think it's going to look odd. I've been walking down there for 27 years, probably once a week, and I think it will look awkward, and we just don't need it anymore now that the Pokemon Go groups are no longer there. So it's just I think it'll look messy, and every 10-year-old boy in the city is going to go down there and skip rocks. In a couple years, all of it will be in Lake Winnebago anyway. So I would move to remove $21,000 from the Kimberly Point Park path, number 5.
Alderman Lundrum moves.
Motion.
Alderman Lundrum moves to take out $21,000 from the Kimberly Point walking path.
Second.
Is there a second? Alderman Paulno seconds it. Discussion. Alderman Bates.
I believe this was put in not due to Pokemon. I think it was a request for other people to be able to walk along the water. Pokemon really wasn't happening at the water. It was more around the street. As Alderman Zaretsky had said, her intent when she mentioned that it would be better as part of a whole plan just goes along with the idea that it's something that would be a good idea. If the whole plan was being done at the same time, it would be a better idea. But that, once again, is one of those things that may or may not happen. And if this is something that the citizens would like to be able to get closer to the water without getting in the mush, getting out there, then I totally support it. And I think it might be a good way of seeing that more of the park is used. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I know this was put in because of the people he had heard from requesting this be put in the budget. And, I've heard from people there walking with children with strollers. And, downtown, when you try to back out of a parking place, it's hard to see. And here you have people walking along the lakeshore very often. And I've heard from parents who don't like walking behind the cars parked there because people can't see them coming, can't see the strollers in front of them. And so it's more of a safety thing. And, I support it for that reason. As far as throwing stones in the water, it's going to be a screenings thing. There's not going to be stones to throw in the water. So it'll be rolled. It'll be hard. You'll be able to push a stroller on it or bike on it or whatever. So I'll be in favor. I'll be voting against taking this out.
Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Director Kaiser. Since this is a stone path, is this something that will be shoveled in the winter, or what will happen in the winter?
This will be a park maintenance item, so I'd leave it to Director Kading to answer that.
So in the winter, it will not be maintained. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? I'll just comment that since I'm the one who put this in, wasn't originally asked for, I think Alderman Hillstrom's correct. This wasn't, maybe Pokemon, highlighted it, but I think I've shared with you with some of the emails that I've received from citizens saying that it would be nice to have a walking path through that park. Anytime you can get people closer to the water, I think that's a good thing. The number 2 or 3 thing on why people, or what people wanted on the comprehensive plan tonight, was access to the water and to be close to the water. And Brad pointed it out for me, totally unrelated to this walking path. But that ranked very, very high, people's ability to have access and be close to the water. And so my comment or my thought process was people with strollers, walkers, hikers, people are going to go their own way and they're going to stay on the road and everything. But there's a little bit of a safety factor too. The first time someone backs out, and we've been fortunate so far. But if I'm sure people who are utilizing the park would like to be closer to the water. So that's why I did it. Asked that it be put in, and I'm hopeful that it's a small item. I just think it'll actually enhance the park. Alderman Paulno.
First couple of years on council, before we had our process now, which I like, were items on the list. We used to debate. I remember specifically Lake Shore Drive, long, lengthy discussions till 11, 12 at night, and we haven't done that in quite a while. And where does this discussion at that time was sidewalks?
I was going to say you don't want to have a lengthy debate.
No, I just wanted, where does this relate to that? Because that hasn't been brought up in quite a while because we got feathers burned.
Lake Shore's moved out.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. But, so my trouble with this is we're going to have a really good walking path, but we haven't addressed the street that really needs, base rating pretty low, and I don't know where it ranks on the GK scale, and just, I find it, that's kind of why I don't.
I think that's a fair question.
It's we're piecemealing things, and I agree that, people close to the water, if you ask people, hey, you want something close to the water, 9 out of 10 are going to say, yeah. But then you say, well, if you're going to pay $300 out of your pocket, well, no, I don't want it. Without a cost, everybody wants something cool. And I think this would be cool. I just against it because we haven't really circled back around on that, and now we're taking a little piece out of it. I think it's right before the horse.
Well, the rest of the piece of that puzzle is not on the table tonight. That's in a future year. And I mean, I'm not always consistent. I just argued that I'd like to wait for the police department, till we did it all. And now 30 minutes later, I said I'd like to do this piecemeal. So I'm consistently inconsistent. I'll give you that much. But I guess it depends on the topic. And I hope it stays in. Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. People are worried about safety. They can walk on the grass. If they want to get close to the water, they can walk on the grass right up to the water. This doesn't magically get you any closer to the water. You're free to walk up on the grass, and it's 90% of the time it's dry. I go there often, and a lot of times it's a lateral move from the street to the water, not along the pathway that people want to. They want to get to the swings. They want to get to the bench, but then they'll generally walk right back. But it's not like it's going to draw people to the water, because you can go to the water now. It's a park. You just walk on the grass. Thank you.
Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. Back when I was first moved to Neenah, I had a little one in a stroller, and that was before Southview Park had a trail in it. And that was one of my first things to come to council and request and look at. My neighbors were thinking that it would change everything, but it improves the way that I remember taking that stroller, and it's like bumpity, 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 bump. It's just a nice way of getting a walking path. And as we get older, we have parents in wheelchairs now. So even though I don't have strollers, I would still appreciate a way to get to the water and loop around.
Alderman Lundrum has moved, seconded by Alderman Paulno, to take out the Kimberly Point walking path at $21,000 to remove that. All in favor of that motion will vote aye. All opposed to that motion will vote no, using the roll call machine, please. That motion passes 5-4. Alderman Paulno.
Yeah, I'd like to make the following motion in regard to Caroline Street. Motion include lowering the obligation borrowing for stormwater, $665,000 to $369,000, which is a $296,000 reduction, as well as raising the general obligation borrowing in streets for $185,000, it's $249, sanitary sewer $100,000, $291, stormwater $11,293, which is $290,000 increase, which is net neutral to the overall borrowing. That's to add in the work in Caroline Street, which has been identified 2 years running as the GK rating as the worst condition streets statistically that we have in the city. I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Paulno, seconded by Alderman Boyette, to add Caroline Street to the list of street reconstruction projects and offset that by borrowing by using stormwater carry forward funds to reduce the proposed 2018 stormwater borrowing by $290. Correct?
Well, that's not part of my motion.
No?
No. I mean, that was a recommendation I sent the email of potential revenue source that Director Kaiser could utilize to offset that reduction in borrowing. I don't want to direct him to, because that's his department. He recommends carry forwards. There's identified money that he could utilize.
All right. So
you need to know how it's going to be.
Restate.
The funding, I did state it. It's a net in borrowing. It would be a reduction in stormwater borrowing and an increase in street borrowing as it laid out. So
Reduction in stormwater.
correct, of 296,000, and an increase for Caroline of 296,000. The water department is a self-funded item. That would be we don't have purview over.
Okay.
And just to clarify, I put verbiage in my email to the council recognizing that we have approximately with from 2010 to 2016 and carry forward $1.2 million in storm that is available for Director Kaiser to utilize and carry forward money.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Water Director Taylor. And while he's making his way up here, we have an amazing chart that Director Taylor and Director Kaiser have made for us that allows us to see not only the street surface condition, but the utilities underneath. And it looks difficult, but it's actually really kind of cool and kind of nerdy. But this is anyone I think would enjoy this. What I'd like to know from you is about the cost of repairing leaks under the water. When you do this type of thing, and when we think about streets, and we think about how many times, and it's on here, that the water main has had a leak, or the service leaks, I guess. And so when when it's tempting to put off a street, you look at this chart and you see how many times it has had leaks in both the water main and the service leaks. And I think at one time, I think I may have asked you, how much does one of these leaks cost approximately? And over time, that's the cost of redoing the whole street. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Sure. First of all, I have to give Jerry Kaiser all the credit for the GK rating system because he has the majority of the information in there and he maintains that. So thanks to Jerry. On an average, a main break for the water utility would run anywhere from $2,500 to $4,500 per occasion. So we've got 700 feet on Caroline that needs to be relayed. I believe we've had approximately 10 to 14 main leaks and another 10 service leaks. So we've got approximately a leak every 50 feet or so. So, our mark is on that road. We know exactly where we are in this city. The problem is that we've got a lot of these streets that we do have to repair. But for Caroline, it is the number one street on our list as far as our rating. So the only thing that it doesn't take into effect is how critical in nature the street is in regard to collector streets and major arterials and what sort of service outage it creates a problem for. So, but there's a lot of money associated with every time we put a hole in the road. To boot, we've got 14 lead services over there, I believe.
Yep.
And that's just another chapter in the story of how we have to get better. So Caroline is definitely on our radar. It has been for a long time, and we hope that we are able to fix it.
You all even have a how many leaks per foot column, which is so cool. And Director Kaiser had said something about, he called it consequence of failure. And I don't know if it's on here. I just wrote it on as a note. Just in layperson's speak, I guess if that road were to fail or be out of commission, its location makes it a priority or a low priority. Like if it's right next to the hospital.
Correct.
Or on a close to a thoroughfare.
That's one of the columns that we have not really included on the spreadsheet, the consequence of failure and risk analysis. We hope to do that in the future, and what that does, it does identify,
what is the risk associated with the street or the infrastructure going out. So obviously something on a major arterial that connects to a major employer has a higher number than maybe a residential street, but we have not included that as of yet.
That would be great for the future. And I would guess just the use of being closer to, it's just a higher used street and more wear and tear on it would, as opposed to some of these, courts or cul-de-sacs. So anyway, thank you for updating this, and this is really handy, so thank you.
Alderman Bates?
Thank you, Mayor. In my notes, I had a question about the Rock the Block. I understand that that's going on this summer for this particular area. I was wondering, would there be an impact on Rock the Block is such a valuable tool for people in the area to fix up their homes and get some sweat equity and doing a whole neighborhood over, whether or not, what time frame would we be talking about redoing the street?
I brought that up at the workshop. Maybe Jerry can, there may be, it might be going on at the same time, but Jerry?
I would say that when we're locked in on the week for Rock the Block, we can include that in our specifications for the work schedule on the street. So we'll work around that.
But there could be some impacts. Alderman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for Director Kaiser. Adding this back in, we have the manpower to get the engineering done and everything done to do this project?
We have the survey work done. We'd be starting design as soon as we got the word. So, yeah, we'd be prepared to add this to the schedule for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Coons?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be voting against this amendment for two reasons. The first one is I'm hoping we do look at an alternative to special assessments. I've been hoping for that for going on 5 years. And to me, and everybody knows, I've always pushed for roads. I've always made the statement that we do about a mile of road, and we have 135 miles of road, and I can do the math as well as anyone. And 135-year replacement cycle, it isn't exactly what we're all hoping for. But at the same time, this is the one time, this 1 year, I'd say, let's not push and do more roads if we're looking at potentially putting together a whole different funding source in the very, very near future. At the same time, I'd also would state that the funding source for this is, I don't know the word I want to use, dubious, and that we hope that it comes along, but I'm not sure exactly what it is and whether I don't have the details of what the water department, what that does, and the chain effect of that. So for those two reasons, I love that we want to do more roads, but this is the one time I would vote against it.
Other questions or comments? Alderman Stevenson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll mirror Alderperson Coons' comments more from a funding perspective. Although I do agree with the position of if we are going to evaluate how we're going to fund roads, i.e. assessment versus some sort of other methodology, but the utilization of stormwater dollars to fund streets, while a cash perspective probably makes sense, struggle with that. Probably because I'm old and we've never done it before. But not that I don't like the fact that we're creative, how we're trying to utilize dollars that are available. So with those two issues, I will vote against it as well.
Alderman Pono.
All right. Let's talk about funding source. I haven't put that in the motion because I think it's up to Director Kaiser because of what I've identified as a funding source. We have a lot of just for one of the carry forwards in stormwater, it's 180,000 ish is from 2010. I mean, that's 112,000. One of them is from 2010. We borrowed dollars in 2010, and we earmarked them from Washington Park for stormwater. We've sat on that money for 7 years. 7 years we sat on this stormwater money, and then at the same time, we advocate for doing streets. Well, the two are not on the same path. I think if we're serious about it, we come forward with an assessment plan. I've tried that. I've went down that road. I've done a council directive. I've spent energy doing that. But people on Caroline Street are driving through. I lived in that neighborhood, driving through flooded streets, water main breaks. You know, their car. How much damage does it do to a car for all the potholes and the water leaks? You know, and conceptually we can sit here and talk about, oh, we should do an assessment. Well, then come forward with a plan. I tried. And, you know, we have a lot of lip service here. It's frustrating that, that people say they want to do something, but I've been in chairman of the finance committee for 2 years, and I haven't had one alderman ask me to put it on the agenda. So how serious are we? I'm serious. I tried. I'll advocate in any kind of discussion for that. But people on Caroline Street are driving through flooded water today. I think we'd be remiss when this doesn't raise the borrowing at all. We have $1.2 million in stormwater that everybody says conceptually we need, but nobody can identify a specific project we're utilizing for, except for a 2010 Washington Park stormwater situation that obviously that's been taken care of because we're redoing the whole park. So it's frustrating that that people talk about assessments and want to do stuff, and they don't look at the people on Caroline Street. Thank you.
Alderman Coons.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to try to talk less this meeting, but can't seem to help myself. Two things I just wanted to address, and one is assessments. It's something I've been working on for a while. Trying to go with a transportation feed. I've done that. I've tried to go through a couple different channels. Probably got the council a little upset, thinking maybe I was going too far. I don't know what, but I was trying to do what the only way I could think of to do it the right way. I've put together spreadsheets. I've laid out plans. I've put a lot of things together. What I can't do is bring it forward without some detailed information. And I don't mean to. Everyone's busy, without detailed information, I know this council can say, hey, you want to pass this fee, and it's going to cost some kind of sort of dollars like this, and we're going to kind of sort of assess it like this. You vote for it. I know this group enough to say they're not going to vote for it without a specific plan, and for that I need help. And I think with the mayor actually putting the request in the budget is helpful, and maybe we'll move forward with that. But I know, particularly with Public Works, they've had a lot of projects from garbage and what they're trying to do with that to a million other things. We've added roads and everything else, and we really haven't had any people there. So I recognize the challenges, and I don't mean to point fingers or anything else. But there's a lot of desire there. There's a lot of work, but there's detail that needs to be put in place, and that's the tough spot. And then just really quickly on, I share Alderperson Paulno's passion for taking a look at what we borrow and our debt service and everything else. And I think we're on the same page on that one, maybe a slightly different approach. I would love for us, and I keep on bringing it up, for taking concerted effort about how we borrow and how we spend and how we go about doing that. We have this process where we're going to borrow less than we spend, but we have 3 or 4 different funding sources for those borrowed dollars, whether it's TIF dollars, non-TIF dollars, or utilities. They all get paid from a different source. It's a whole different structure for that. And then even with that, in non-TIF dollars, now you have carry forward dollars, and you've got all these other items going on here that we have never addressed and taken a strategic approach on how we want to do that. I think there's many strategic approaches to take, but we haven't addressed that. It's a tough animal. I don't say there's any easy answers, and I didn't expect people to dive on that one and say let's tackle that tomorrow. But I hope, and I think slowly we're getting that, and we're thinking about that, and I see a few new things happening. So I'm excited by that. So I'm trying to be excited by what I do see, because there's been a lot of challenges, and department heads work awfully hard, and we are limited by the effort we can put into these things. And that's tough, and we're trying to balance everything. So I'm trying to be patient, and we'll go forward.
Director Easker, do you have a clarification?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick clarification on the funding source part of this. And the best way to do this is to ask you to turn to page 241. I guess what I want to clarify is, as I understand Alderman Paulno's motion, we would not be using monies that had previously been borrowed for stormwater to do this project. What instead we would do, if you look on page 241, you'll see under the utilities, sanitary and storm section, you'll see under expenditures, we have stormwater projects. The mayor proposed $665,000. We then see beneath that the funding source to pay for those is $665,000 of borrowing for the storm projects. I believe what Alderman Paulno is proposing is instead of borrowing $665,000 to support the storm projects for 18, he would use, and there's the line right beneath, use of reserves stormwater. That is essentially carry forward money, or reserves are basically just carry forward money that is available to be used. And we would use $296,000 of stormwater reserves to help pay for the $665,000, and it would reduce borrowing overall for the city, and then we would be able to borrow the money that for Caroline Street. I just want to clarify, so we would not be using stormwater funds to pay for streets or sanitary sewer. We would simply be reducing the borrowing for storm, and then being able to reallocate those borrowings for Caroline Street, just to clarify what I believe the motion.
Thank you. Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to address Alderman Kunz's concern, and he's not alone, for trying to come up with an alternative way to assess for streets. It is terrible now. Some of these homeowners will be assessed or billed, let's just call it what it is, $4,500. That's a lot of money in a very short amount of time. And Alderman Paulno did come up with a clear, simple, coherent idea, and I tried to get it through committee. I didn't even get a second. And we have been working on this for, 2 years now, I guess. We are no closer to coming up with an idea. The problem is the money has to come from somewhere, whether it's a wheel tax or assessment or whatever we come up with. It's still money that's coming out of residents' pockets. There's just no way around it. It's got to be paid for somehow. But to put off a street because we haven't come up with another way to assess, I think we're just going to keep putting off streets because we, again, are no closer to coming up with an answer. Alderman Paulno tried. Like I said, I couldn't even get a second for it. So it's not going to be an answer that's right around the corner. The mayor had talked about putting it on a referendum. That was last year, nothing. So it's just a very difficult subject, and nobody wants to address it, but we have to do these streets. So thank you.
Alderman Boyette.
My first question, of course, was going to be for Director Easker, because I did want to clarify the funding, so I appreciate that. Secondly, I just want to make a comment that if we take the road or street that is designated by staff as the worst and we put it off another year or two, I have an issue with that. I mean, we're gonna go to number 3 or number 4 on the list and say, oh, let's replace those. When, as stated by Alderman Paulno, this one is flooding. Currently, there's flooding issues. People are calling on a regular basis saying, hey, my vehicle is falling in this hole. My kids can't ride their bikes safely on the road. So it too is a safety issue. And I have a problem with that. So I agree with this.
Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of those years where we're kind of looking forward and trying to do what we're doing at the same time. I know Alderman Lendrum was very supportive of taking Bond and Center out because she said the people don't have the money to do it. So let's kind of watch to see what happens with this proposed, either how we would tax for getting the money to do this. And then this is kind of the same issue. It's going to be hit on these people. And so I'm just kind of balancing between what we did for these other two and then what we're doing with this one, putting it back in. The other thing that sometimes scares me is that the people have been following on Caroline Street as they should be because they know that they're coming up. They would have seen that the mayor's proposal was not to put them in this year, so they would be not here tonight. And then to put it in tonight, they really don't have a chance to voice their opinion, I guess, until we actually get into borrowing. But when we've taken some out because of the possibility of a change, and then to put this one in because it's just a different street is difficult.
Any other discussion on this amendment? I'm going to make a comment, try and keep it brief. This is just another one of those. I was trying to make the numbers work. I commend Alderman Paulno. I mean, it's his district. He's a former resident of that area. He knows this area. I drove over there yesterday. I drove through there. Streets, and there is a street worse than that street. And it's the end of of Monroe Street, just west of Van. Right, Jerry? Monroe and Van is, I don't even think the Pony Express would go down that, but that street's, there's one with street worse, I'll guarantee you. But anyways, so my point is this is the thing that someone said at the meeting, consequence of failure, and collector streets and that, and there is a possibility of the assessments changing. The newsletter that's going to come out in 2 weeks, the entire second half of my newsletter is going to talk about street assessment. It's going to ask the citizens to call you and me to let us know if you have any interest in changing the way that we assess streets in this community. The reason there's not a referendum is I didn't get a warm and fuzzy when I brought up the referendum. I'll tell you that much. I didn't get a warm and fuzzy from a lot of people about going to a referendum. So I decided to put it in my newsletter, in my mayor's notes, and I didn't get into a lot of detail, but I think I was succinct enough that I think it's going to generate some discussion back and forth to us. So I'm hopeful of that. That'll be coming out in a couple weeks. And based upon if I hear from people, which I hear from a lot of people, it's amazing to me how many people read that entire thing cover to cover, to be perfectly honest. And they talk about the really handsome guy on the front page. But, no? Okay. But hopefully we'll get a feel. And I encourage them to get a hold of you folks and let you know if there's a better way or if they have some ideas. But Bill's being an advocate for his constituents. I respect that immensely. I did drive the area. There's about Caroline Street. It's a dead-end street. Union Street's a dead end on the north. It's a dead end on the south. The number of homes on Union Street between Sherry and Caroline are 4. The number of homes on the Caroline to Adams on Union Street is about 6, I believe, if I counted right. And then there's 8 on Caroline between Harrison and Union, and probably another 10 on Caroline between Harrison and Van. And that doesn't make them any less valuable because they pay property taxes just like everybody else does. But it's not a high utilization street. And so I think what I wanted to do yesterday was I just didn't have time because of everything going on. I wanted to go knock on all their doors. I wanted to say, Would you prefer that we get this street done? Is it reached that point? Or would you prefer to wait a year to see if the council comes up with a better mousetrap for paying for street assessments? And I think I'm willing to bet if you asked them, they'd probably say we can put up with it one more year to see if the council comes up with something. But either way, Bill has found a potential funding source for this, so I'm okay either way. But I just do look at that consequence of failure comment and think we can muddle through one more year. But I don't represent, I represent that area, but I'm not the alderman, and I think they're doing their job by asking for it. Alderman Paulno.
I just want to weigh in that it wasn't just because I live in that neighborhood and I'm an advocate for the district, but it's number one on the hit parade for the worst street, and water breaks. From my experience in the Water Commission, you're talking $3,000 to $6,000 a crack every time. So that basically you're subsidizing your non-decision if this doesn't pass by having the water department having to pay for that, and then we don't have any end date. And I'm always remiss by just throwing out, asking a question door to door. Hey, if you only have to pay $40, if you frame a question in a certain way, you'll get the answer you want. So, I don't think that's how we should govern. We haven't governed that way for anywhere else or any other item that I know, that we just go door to door and ask, hey, do you want to have this done? I just think we're put here for a reason, to get the best information we can, like the GK report, and make a decision. So I think that's how we should do things.
All right. Well, thank you. I've went door to door in a lot of questions in my career. Personally, I have. Lots of times I've went and knocked on neighborhood doors on a whole host of issues. So, Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question on the Rock the Block program. Isn't that partially funded by the residents? Don't they pay 50% of the expense for improvements?
They pay up to a certain dollar amount. There's a loan they're given a loan up to a certain dollar amount.
My concern is if that is the same year as the assessment for the road, that will be an added expense for them that would incur in that same year, correct?
They don't have to start paying, I believe, the Rock the Block for the following year.
Okay.
And then that would be the same with the assessment. Am I correct, Mike? That the first time they would pay that would be December of 2018. Is that correct?
So they could potentially have both of those expenses in December of 2018.
Yes.
Thank you.
But just so you know, as I understand it, the Rock the Block, you don't have to make any payments. It's not a requirement to make payments, because as I understand it, you don't have to make payments. You can pay that back when you sell your house. They put a lien on against the house, so you can pay back what you can afford. And if you don't want to pay it back, when you sell your house, that's when it can get paid back, is how I understand that program working.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, just to be upfront. So good discussion. Not an easy answer on this one. Anyone else? All in favor of Alderman Paulno's motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no, using the roll call machine, please. That motion fails. 3 ayes, 6 noes. Any other motions? Director Easker, how about the alternate plan for? Okay. Alderman Bates?
Could I request that the tote board be updated? Sure. Director Easter.
There you go. Thank you for reminding me.
Levy is virtually the same, 18,648, 128. Assessed tax rate went down a little less than a half of a cent. We're still at 949.18. Unused levy limit, 81,818. GO borrowing, 8,287,030. Borrowing less than matured, 75,280. So we're still on the positive side there, and nothing else has changed.
All right. There is a request, clarification request, and I think the mayor and the city attorney are interested. If any member would be interested, we sent to you the recommended changes for the Dulles reorganization, the alternate plan being developed by the mayor and the city attorney. It includes changing the timing of what was presented in my budget. The revised plan would have would have the administrative assistant beginning in March instead of July. The revised plan would have the current attorney that handles the prosecutions, Eric Forsgren, staying through July instead of through June, and and those are the two changes.
The assistant city attorney would also start June 1st.
The assistant city attorney would start June 1st, so there would be some overlap.
And there would also be an addition of intern hours effective July 1st.
And those total cost of adjustments in the memo that was sent out, I believe, are $19,508.
Plus the intern, it comes up to $23,210.
Alderman Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so attempting to interpret the mayor, is this a recommendation from the mayor as a budget amendment? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so the financial ramification, I've got the mayor's original proposal, I have the mayor's amended proposal, and I have the difference between the mayor's original and amended proposal.
That's the one.
And that's, so that would, just so I'm clear, the net dollar effect would be an additional 23,200.
Correct.
And that would move the make sure I say this correctly. All the dates that you just said, the administrative assistant would become full-time effective March 1st. The contracted legal services would be effective until 8/1. And the assistant city attorney's effective date would move up from 7/1 to 6/1.
That's correct.
And what other change? Well, we're adding 15 hours per week at $9 an hour effective July 1st. I will make a motion to amend the DOLAS budget to add $23,210 to accomplish what I just described. I'll make a motion.
There's a motion by Alderman Stevenson. Is there a second?
Second.
I was going to do that just for sake of discussion.
Alderman Coons seconds it. Discussion. Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been trying to find that email. When was it sent out?
Oh, I printed it. Sorry.
Doesn't say on the top of it where it was.
It says, find it.
DOLAS reconstruction recommendation on 11/9.
11/9. Oh. What time on 11/9?
2:45.
This was based on discussions in the workshop.
Got it.
And then the council asked us to go back and refine the numbers and the dates. And believe Director Easker then, along with Director Barber and the city attorney, came up with these recommendations.
I've got it pulled up now.
Which
Thank
I
you.
approved. Alderman Bates?
I've got it pulled up now. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Stevenson?
Yeah, to add dollars to the operating budget, Mike reminded me that I probably should recognize a funding mechanism for that. And included in that recommendation is a $16,610 expenditure from unspent 2017 wages and fringes out of the special reserves and escrow account, which I would include as one funding source, and the other funding source would be $6,600 from the health insurance surplus benefit accrual fund. So there's no net effect on tax levy.
So is there any questions or discussion on that motion? Alderman Bates?
One of the things where we're adding the intern at 7118, with it being another big election year, I'm just wondering if to help out with the phone situation is what we usually have the problem with. The beginning of the year seems more important than the end of the year. I don't know if that's decision can be made, it can be floated from one end to the other.
This intern's over and above the one that's in.
Right. There's an intern in the clerk's office as well.
Got it.
So
Thank you.
That'll also relieve a little pressure for the November election.
Right.
August and November.
Thank you.
Alderman Coons?
Thank you, Mayor. This question's for either the mayor or Director Barber. You guys can flip a coin, but I'm just curious of how this came about in that you guys, you thought about we really need a better plan for this transition because of the better overall operation, or is this in response to, I think there was some response, maybe a bit immediate response from the council saying we should take a look at this, and I want to make sure it's the first part where you guys really thinking that this is what we really need if we're going to transition properly. I'm just trying to get your
I'm going to let Jim, and then if Heather wants to, but from my standpoint, this really was to make for a smoother transition of inefficiencies in operational. So I'll let Jim.
Now the increase in the time for the private prosecutor Eric Forsgren is to allow for there to be two trial date, court date overlap with the new assistant city attorney who will be doing the prosecution. The reason for the backup of the start time for the ACA is that that'll allow the coverage overlap with the paralegal, but also be on staff at the time when the Municipal Attorneys Institute occurs in June of each year, and that's a very significant, very important conference that has been very valuable in my career, and I want to get started with that right away with the new.
Court is only held once a month, right. So keeping that Eric Forsgren on for 2 months is not really keeping him on for 2 months. It's keeping him on for 2 court dates.
That's correct.
All right, Heather, you have anything else to add or not?
I think part of the reason for the difference in proposal too is when the mayor's original proposal came out, it was sort of bare bones, the minimum we absolutely could get by with. And then as we had the discussion with the council and we saw that you were open to some overlap and to making it as efficient as possible and us being able to use some carryover funds for that, we looked at what made the most sense and would be the easiest transition. We could have done it under Plan A, but Plan B will just make it much more efficient. So.
Thank you. And I think when I was putting this together, I was trying to make it cost neutral with existing dollars. So, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion by Alderman Stevenson will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Using the roll call machine, please. That motion passes 9-0. Mike, you missing? I've been checking them off. Todd, see anything?
Covered everything on the list from workshop.
On the list, but that doesn't mean we would,
on the list that was created from the workshop.
right, thank you. So, anyone else have any other budget amendments at this point? Alderman Coons?
Not a budget amendment, but I'm going to get here early on this one. And someone might have something else, but I'm going to throw this out there anyways. I just wanted to make a comment about the overall budget and the process and everything else. And that is, I'm always amazed at the department heads and the work they do all along. I mean, they deal with people that come in and have issues about all kinds of things, and they deal with the big, huge issues, and they deal with the budget, and they deal with us, which, in itself can be a handful. And they deal with all those different things, and then they put together a budget, and, they don't ask for the moon, they don't ask for, they know that everyone's trying to keep costs down, they ask for what they really think they need, and I think they really put that together. They come to the workshop, they let us kind of grill them over, and then they, are really thoughtful about the response and what needs to happen. And it makes this process a whole lot easier. It allows me, for me, it's a huge trust level of going, these guys have been doing this they get it, they're looking over this, they get it way better than I do. And they're here day in, day out doing this. And it's a pleasure to do that. I know I can be a handful myself, and I'm not going to speak for the rest of the council. And I appreciate the effort and everything else they put into it. It is one. I've had an issue with the with refuge, and I think everyone was really thoughtful and let me have my little say, and I think they were really responsive to that. That was great. Everything, everywhere around, it's just a class act, and I say it to people out there. The department heads here. They move this city forward every day, and I just wanted to have an opportunity to say that. And I know I ask a lot of questions, do a lot of things, but I do want to make sure I'm grateful for the work they do.
All right, thank you very much. I see no other budget amendments from the workshop discussion. Any other motions? Any other motions? All right. So then the motion becomes the main motion with all the amendments that were passed at this time. Is there anyone who would like to say anything, or is prepared to vote? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion to pass the 2018 operating capital as amended will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. That motion passes 9-0. Let me just take 1 minute just to say that I just want to tell the people at home when they're watching this, this council that we have here in Neenah is very professional, very thorough, very courteous. They take their fiduciary responsibility of utilizing your tax dollars very seriously. And the changes that were made tonight, I think, help make this a better document. So I'm really pleased with the job that they've done and we've done together along with staff. It's been a pleasure to work with Marge Bates as the former council president when she was there my first year, and then now Council President Stevenson, to really prepare a document that I think the taxpayers in Neenah, they need to know that a lot of time and effort went in, and a lot of questions and a lot of thoughtful process. So I appreciate it. I've spent a lot of time on this document myself. My wife has woken me up many nights at 2 o'clock in the morning with the budget book on my lap, in my recliner with 3 cans of Pepsi and a bag of Dairy Queen popcorn. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but these folks here that are representing you throughout the city do it very well. And as Alderman Coons also said, this team up front and the team in the audience and the people at home should know that tonight we've been joined by all the members of the managerial staff. We've been joined by members of the Park and Commission and Library Board. And those folks do a bang-up job each and every day for you folks at home. So we have our little missteps and we have our problems, and we all get phone calls. How come we're doing like this, or we don't do this well, or we need to do better? But everyone takes their job serious here, and I'm really proud of the job that the staff and aldermen have done. So thank you very much. Alderman Stevenson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I traditionally take a second to, after we pass the budget, to thank the department heads and staff. But I don't think I could do it any better than Alderperson Coons did. So I'll just dovetail his thoughts. The one comment I will make, and the mayor hit upon it briefly, and I think it deserves some reinforcement, is when I compare our process to neighboring communities, I'm amazed. Even though I've been doing this a long time, I'm amazed with the level of respect that comes from this side of the room, that side of the room, and from that side of the room to this side of the room. More importantly, from each one of these 9 seats to the other members of the council. Respect and the professionalism that we show each other in the budget debate and in the budget workshops and our interaction with the staff is to be commended. So I congratulate us on that. A job well done.
Alderman Bates?
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if you would just recap for the audience when you mentioned at the beginning about the decisions about garbage collection and things like that, how in this particular budget we haven't made a direct choice quite yet.
Okay. All right. I was, I think the people need to know that tonight we are leaving things as it currently stands currently. But I think what was put in the budget, the dollars, and that will allow us to continue to explore rather quickly, I hope, what is the best route for the city of Neenah. Is it the privatization of automated garbage collection and recycling? Or is it the in-house? Is it going to be financially feasible to do this with our current staff? And after discussions with Director Easker and Director Kaiser and Superintendent Freese, a lot of the questions that the answers that we need to make an educated, and you need to make it this educated decision. I think I think the time has come where we go out, we do an RFP, we get firm commitments, proposals from these companies, and then we can do those side-by-side comparisons that Alderman Coons always likes to have, where we have all the information in front of us. And we were still refining information as late as this morning, because we were getting information. But I will say this, it's my intention, and I think this council's direction, that one way or the other, chances are we are going to have automated garbage collection in the city of Neenah come mid-year 2018. That's the direction that the Public Works people have said would be the best. And financially, we're just trying to put the numbers down. So I think that's a safe thing, because a lot of us are going to get questions on that. But how we're going to implement it is the only answer left in the puzzle. Okay? Thank you for the question. Director Easker, anything you got?
That, I couldn't say it better.
Okay. All right, so We did the, as amended. Do we have to do the document? Or we did the. Okay, we have a couple items on the council agenda. Are we prepared to follow through?
We're at Roman numeral 6. Actually.
Okay, all right. I just always look based on time or anything. I remember one year, it was a lot later. So we're doing well, and people were succinct tonight. They were good. So we will go reconvene into special council meeting, into a regular special council meeting. Item number 6 is a public forum. You're all welcome to stay. But thanks for coming, everyone. We appreciate you taking the time. Andy, thanks for coming. All right. Item number 6 is the public forum. Under the public forum, anyone resident is allowed to come and speak to the council on any subject they want. Chief, go ahead.
Kevin Wilkinson, 1302 Campo Drive. I'm always thankful to citizens in Neenah for helping us in many, many ways. And sometimes people find themselves in a crisis situation and are in a position to really help someone in need. Mayor, you have been in that position many, many times. I hear some of the stories of how you almost uncannily end up at some emergency scene, even when you're off duty, and are able to help out. I'm going to read from an email from one of our officers. I responded to an accident today on West Winneconne Avenue at US 41 southbound in which an elderly woman in a motorized wheelchair was struck by a vehicle. One of our older persons, Carrie Lendrum, was on scene when I arrived. She did a wonderful job of tending to the elderly woman's wound on her head, and she was even able to round up a witness and keep her on scene for us. She also provided us with her own witness statement. He thanked her for her help at the scene, but I just wanted to acknowledge her good work in front of her peers. Thank you, Carrie.
All right, thank you very much, and keep up the good. Tell the officers keep up the good work. There's a lot of good stories coming out of the department of ways they've been helping. Individual officers have been helping the public also. So, anyone else in the public forum? Seeing no one else, we will go on to item number 7. Anything? Consent agenda? There is none. Standing committees. The Public Safety Services Safety Committee was canceled. There is no report from the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of November 6th. Is that correct? Item number 10. Special committees. The Plan Commission meeting was canceled. Board of Public Works meeting of November 7th, 2017. Vice Chairman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Minutes from this meeting can be found on the city website. There's one informational item this evening. The board approved change order number 1 for contract PR 01-17, Loop the Lake project for abutment and pier enhancement to Pfeiffer Brothers Construction, Neenah, the amount of $19,500, with funding to come from 50% grant dollars and 50% contingency unless dollars become available through fundraising. And that concludes my report. Oh, that's the second. Okay.
You have November 7th on yours.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I was getting ahead of myself. From the November 7th meeting, minutes can also be found on the city website. Informational items only. The board approved pay estimate number 1 for contract 5-17 for Cecil Street Bridge repair to Summers Construction Company Incorporated, Shiocton, for contract 5-17 in the amount of $104,283.78. Item B, the board approved pay estimate number 1 for contract 6-17 for concrete pavement and sidewalk repair to L. Dix Concrete, Kakana, the amount of $110,604.37. And item C, the board approved pay estimate number 1 for contract 7-17 for pavement repair to MCC Incorporated Appleton in the amount of $62,581.34. And now I conclude my report.
All right. Thank you very much for your report. CDA, is there any update from the CDA, Director Hayes?
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report.
Sustainable Neenah Committee, Alderman Coons.
I have nothing to report today.
Library Board?
Thank you, Mayor. The Neenah Library Board will be meeting tomorrow night, so I'd like to change my report to the next council meeting. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the Neenah Arts Council. They coordinated a Celebrate the Season event, and the Library Board is part of that event, and it is a coordination of the Historical Society, the downtown, the Berkshire Mahler Museum, the library. There's an event at Bridgewood on Sunday, but there's an entire weekend event. And City Hall will be having, and it's an entire weekend of events of holiday things going on, and that information will be coming out in the city newsletter.
Okay.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you. There are no petitions. Any council directives? Any unfinished business? Alderman Stevenson.
I'm not sure if this is unfinished. I guess it's new business. So.
Okay. New business. Mayor Crawford's appointment to fill the expired term of Tina Palmer and Mark Snyder on the bid board. These terms will expire December 2020. These will be considered at the December 6th meeting. My appointment to fill the expired term of Ted Galloway and Amanda Loudon on the Park and Rec Commission. They will also expire December 2020. This will be considered at the December 6th meeting. My appointment to fill the expired term of Forrest Bates on the Neenah Menasha Sewage Commission. That term expires December 2020. This will be considered at the December 6th meeting. We just appointed. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's water. That's water. Sorry about that. So this is the Neenah Menasha Sewage Commission. I do have one or two candidates. A couple aldermen even gave me a couple candidates, so thank you. I'm talking to them. And now Forrest is up, so I'll be talking to Forrest, who's doing a great job, so, okay. Mayor Crawford. Okay, Alderman Stevenson?
Yeah, I just wanted to, looking for the email regarding the holiday party that's the City Hall is sponsoring, and the holiday party. And we've been invited in the last couple of years. The council has put a basket together. So if I'd like to do that again. So if anybody would like to participate, whatever you want to give. Last year, I think we each gave $10 or something. I went out, something maybe Marge did. So if you're interested, see me. We'll get something coordinated. I think it's November 7th, right? Is the holiday party?
December
7th. I'm sorry, December 7th.
And I believe the money for those baskets goes to the Christmas Giving Fund. Is that right?
Some of the dollars go to help fund the Christmas party.
But then some, I think, go to
Maybe.
help
I think
Heather
they split
with
it
the
50-50 or
Christmas
something.
Giving Fund. All right, so thank you. And then item number D is Mayor Crawford's appointment to fill the expired term of Dave Rouse and Peter Fetters on the Sustainable Neenah Committee. They would also expire 2020. And Jim said it would be okay. We had a resignation today from the Committee on Aging. So we're hopefully going to fill that position at the December 6th council meeting also.
Could I ask who?
Pardon me?
Could I ask who?
Okay. And I would just like to say good luck to the hunters out there this weekend. I know Todd's got the hunting beard going on, so good luck, Todd. Keep your head down. Stay safe to all the hunters out there. And remember, the brigade is selling brigade wreaths, and there's a lot of boys and girls who are going door to door in that. If you get the opportunity to buy a brigade wreath and support the brigade, you know, the Boy Scouts are selling popcorn and that too. They came to my door, but I'll give them equal time. But a lot of brigade wreaths, those sales go to help the Boys Brigade, and it would be appreciated. Anyone else have any other announcements? Any other announcements?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion by Alderman Stevenson to adjourn and a second by Paulno. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Right.
Broadcasts of the City of Neenah Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents via the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues or about these broadcasts by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or by completing the electronic feedback form on the city website, www.neenahgov.org. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.